Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Macabre Matinee with Craig and Sean. As always, I am Craig Lance,
And I'm Sean, bearded Capelin.
and this is episode 29, if I can still count correctly. I have kind of, ran past fingers and toes to count, so we're just going to have to assume I'm keeping track
I'm a,
well
I'm a
in other
trust you.
places.
I'm gonna trust you on this and assume you're correct until I go and actually make the titles when we upload.
So, we are going to talk about a movie that is getting a lot of stir right now, both positive and negative.
Right.
And that movie is Malignant. And so, if you haven't seen this movie, you can go currently stream it on HBO Max. I think it's there for another 10 days or so, probably. Um, and then it'll be leaving for about a month or two, and then usually it'll be back. So,
Yeah.
uh, pause us, go watch it, come back and listen to what we have to say on this kind of, like I said, it's getting both positive and negative, so you'll hear our take on it as we go here. This movie was released in 2021. It's written by James Wan, Ingrid Basu, and Akela Cooper, directed by James Wan, stars Annabelle Wallace as Madison, Maddie Hassan as Sydney, and George Young as Detective Shaw. So it's this kind of to get the setting for you. It starts off in 1993, and the setting is a 1930s sinister-looking psychiatric hospital where a patient named Gabriel is being treated. Gabriel has the ability to manipulate electricity and can broadcast his thoughts through speakers as he needs to. However, on this particular night, Gabriel has had enough of everyone's shit and becomes violent, killing several members of the hospital staff. The doctors decide it's time to cut out the cancer, so to speak, where they operate on Gabriel, and then we switch to 27 years in advance to the year 2020.
Yeah.
And we meet Madison, who is a pregnant woman living in Seattle with her abusive asshole husband, Derek. And Derek and Madison get into an argument, and Derek decides to smash her head against the wall. Madison gets Derek out of the room and locks him out. Derek, being the solid man he is, decides to sleep on the couch. That night, with Madison passed out from the head trauma, sinister things begin happening in the house. It ultimately leads to to Derek's death. Madison awakens and heads downstairs to find the killer is still in the house, and the killer attacks Madison, knocking her out. When Madison wakes up, she finds herself in the hospital with her sister Sydney by the bed. Sydney tells Madison that the baby didn't survive the attack. And meanwhile, the killer attacks and kidnaps a woman who runs a tour of the old underground of Seattle. Later, Madison has what I would call an interactive vision of the killer attacking and killing Dr. Weaver, the psychiatrist who treated Gabriel in the opening scene.
Right.
I guess that's what you'd call it, right? An interactive vision, like she's taken from her house to the side of the killing, and
Yeah, that's a good way of to describe it. Yeah. And once
yeah,
like you'll get
yeah,
more once we get into I guess the reveal of what it all is. Like it'll
yeah.
make a little more sense. But that's a good descriptor. I like it.
Yeah. So detectives Shaw and Moss begin investigating the death of Dr. Weaver. They find a photo of young Madison in one of Dr. Weaver's patient journals that she apparently keeps at her house for plot reasons. Madison later has another vision, this time of Dr. Fields being killed. Dr. Fields was the other psychiatrist on Gabriel's case. Madison and Sydney go to the police and tell Detective Sean Moss about the visions. Madison also reveals that the killer revealed himself to be Gabriel, uh, who was her childhood imaginary friend. Shaw, who is infatuated with Sydney, tends to believe Madison, and Moss thinks they're both full of shit. We learn that Madison was adopted when she was 8 and that she had the imaginary friend Gabriel. And Detective Moss and Shaw decide to have a hypnotherapist to kind of come in and treat Madison to see what her repressed memories are, to see if they can get some more information on this case. Well, we find out that Gabriel would speak to Madison, tell her to do bad things, or he would sometimes do them, and Madison would take the fall. As the therapy session ends, the kidnapped woman falls through the ceiling.
Oh yeah.
Um, and the detectives arrest Madison when they find all of Gabriel's clothes and tools in Madison's attic. We also find out that the woman who was kidnapped was Madison's birth mother. Sydney heads to the abandoned psychiatric hospital where she finds out that Gabriel is Madison's conjoined twin and that they share the same brain and spinal cord. And in order to help Madison live a quote unquote normal life, they cut away Gabriel. Unfortunately for Madison, they really couldn't get rid of all of Gabriel since they shared the same brain. So their solution was to cut Madison's skull open and push Gabriel's face into the skull and stitch Madison back up.
Because that's how biology works.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
When Madison's husband knocked her head against the wall, he split her skull open, which allowed for Gabriel's reemergence. Back in the jail, Madison is being harassed by some of the other inmates, and Gabriel's just not going to put up with that shit. So he takes over and takes complete control of Madison. He kills all the inmates, the guards, and pretty much the entire police precinct before escaping. Sydney has shown up to tell Shaw what's going on, finds him. They head to the hospital where they are confronted by Sydney slash Gabriel. I'm sorry, by Madison slash Gabriel. Sydney tells Madison that the reason she can't have babies is because Gabriel feeds off the fetuses for whatever reason. So,
Sure.
which enrages Madison, who locks Gabriel in a prison of their mind. The end. Oh, wait, she uses her superhuman strength because she realizes that if Gabriel can do it, she can do it, and moves the heavy hospital bed off of Sydney, and they give each other a hug, and then credits roll. So yeah, that's what happened. It was a movie.
It certainly was. Yeah. My first note though is asshole husband, fuck him.
Yeah, pretty much.
What a
Pretty
piece! Like,
much.
and at first, like, because I knew nothing, I went into this movie completely blank. You know,
Same.
we watched it originally when it first debuted. I think both of us did. So I knew nothing about it. So I thought, okay, this might be, the husband kind of being the main
Yeah,
antagonist or
like he
something.
was Gabriel or whatever.
Yeah, and then that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Now, being
Yeah,
James
no, that
Wan,
didn't happen real quick.
not yeah, real quick. I was like, okay, this is something else. And then,
Yeah.
this being James Wan film, visually interesting film. I
Yeah.
liked the cinematography. Unfortunately,
Yeah, absolutely.
that's probably my biggest compliment to this film. Now,
So,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say James Wan gave us Saw,
Yeah,
and in since the success of Saw, and don't get me wrong, James Wan's a very successful and very good director. I'd almost call him like the current king of horror.
oh yeah, yeah, he does a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, um, but you could see this twist coming from like 5 miles away.
Yeah,
Now, maybe it wasn't the exact twist, but you knew that Gabriel was a part of Madison. You just didn't know how.
right.
Um, it wasn't. If you've watched any movies, probably since The Sixth Sense,
Yeah.
you should have seen this coming,
Now,
in my opinion.
oh, absolutely. Well, absolutely. And what's crazier, while I didn't have all the details, I damn near called it to the letter.
Yeah,
Because basically on the scene where she's getting the interactive vision of I believe it was the psychiatrist, the one that was killed in
Yeah,
bed,
yeah,
and
that's the actual psychiatrist,
yeah,
and the other one was the surgeon, I guess.
right, getting killed in the bed, and I noticed one of the arms was kind of bent backwards, and from
Yeah,
there, my brain immediately went to she's bleeding from the back of the head to Sean years ago being bored on the internet on Imgur, just reading posts and seeing a story, whether I'm not sure how true it is or not, about a man who was born with a conjoined twin that only came out from the back of his head that wasn't alive, wasn't talking, but he claimed it spoke to him. And there's pictures, and
nah,
again, I don't know if it's actually true or not because it's the internet. But like he claimed it spoke to him at night, and he ended up killing himself over it. But all that rushed to my head. I'm like, there's a face in the back of her fucking head. Now I didn't expect we're gonna shove a face into your head brain, and, and then that can magically just show back up and give you parkour skills. but
yeah,
but yeah, early on I'm like, and I'm looking at my wife. I watched this with Vanetta, and I was like, I know what it is, but I'm not saying it. I'm not going to tell you until we get. But then about halfway through the film, Vanetta's like, "This movie's shit. Just tell me what you think it is." I was like, "Okay," and yeah, I was about 90% right.
yeah, that was about me. I was about 90% right. So yeah, to me, if you want to break this movie up into parts,
Yeah,
the first, well, forgetting the opening sequence, which is just horribly acted.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Once Madison shows up in Derek, from that point through um, probably when she starts having the visions,
Right,
is actually a fairly decent horror movie.
right. When
It's
they,
it's a decent ghost movie, and that's what it presents itself as.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, but then it just kind of all goes to hell, in my opinion. Now,
And
I know a lot of people that think just the opposite of this. They actually loved the twist in the second half of the movie and hated the first half.
right,
Um, and to that, I will say to each their own. You know, art in any form is subjective,
right.
but this is to me is objectively just bad.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those cases. And again, to each their own. But this is our show, so we're giving our opinions.
That's right.
um, but yeah, it was far more interesting. This is one, and it happens in movies, especially. I would say not that they weren't beforehand, but post The Sixth Sense, where
Yeah.
everyone wanted to kind of have a twist in certain, especially in the horror genre. Sometimes
Yep.
the reveal can ruin a film. I'm not going to say
Yep.
like ruin because honestly, it wasn't that great even beforehand. I really wouldn't I wasn't feeling it. Like it just like early on, yeah, like we got for again our YouTube watchers, you see the GIF where she's holding the door and an invisible force knocks her back. That was far more interesting as far as a mystery before her seeing Gabriel in her body, granted, but just seeing what Gabriel was doing. Like that kind of mystery trying to
Yeah.
figure it out was a lot better to me than what we ended up getting.
Well, and that's to me one of the reasons it makes this movie really bad. That scene that you just talked about, where Gabriel attacks her.
Yeah,
Um, don't treat your audience like they're stupid,
yeah,
and you put something in there to throw the audience off from what it could be. Don't do something like that.
yeah,
Um,
because that was a clear misdirect because that interaction between them never happens like that again in the rest of the film.
that's right. And to me, that's just it's talking down to your audience and to the people consuming the film.
Right.
It just if you throw in a misdirect that doesn't make sense, that doesn't follow the rest of the rules that are set up throughout the movie.
Right.
I mean, at one point she sees him crossing the street.
Yeah. Yeah. Which
You know, it,
I mean, you could dive into the possibility of like maybe he has some kind of sentience in her head and giving her visions, but it's like it's not explained well. It's not established.
it's
That's what it is. That's me literally trying to make sense of a story
yep,
that isn't explained.
that's right. And it just does it again. To me, it's talking down to your audience, treating them like they're stupid.
Right. And now,
Instead, I'm not saying I need everything explained, but you can't set up rules where yes, he's got some superhuman strength and he can manipulate electricity, um, but they never establish that it's two separate people, you know,
up
but yet it is,
yeah, up until the reveal, and again, certain misdirects were just even within the rules of what Gabriel can do when he takes over, still don't make sense. And I
Yeah,
think it was just kind of a bit of lazy writing. And but again, for the people who enjoyed the twist, and I've heard it say, "Look, this is just a mindless horror film," and they're absolutely right. Now, you and me, being that this is our job and this is also our horror movies are a passion of ours. Even if we weren't making this podcast, our conversation, we still watch horror movies and analyze them. That's just what we enjoy. We love the aspects of the creation of them. So even if we weren't watching it for a show, I think we'd still be pointing out these exact same issues. And
yeah.
if
And to be honest, I would almost argue that once the reveal happens, it's no longer a horror film.
right,
It's just like a almost science fiction
yeah, it
film at that
definitely
point.
it wanted to go a bit more Cronenberg, but definitely not that
Yeah,
quality. Uh,
yeah.
and again, yeah, just an unfortunate like the reveal, the concept idea of this maybe could have worked, but it just didn't really come together for me.
I
Uh,
think it needed another run through the script doctors.
yeah,
Um, to be quite honest with you, because I don't think the premise of the movie is bad. I don't. I
right.
think the execution is bad.
I feel like it was just kind of James Wan has been knocking some hits out of the park, and they were
Yep,
like, he's like, I have a really cool different idea, and they were just like, cool, do it.
yep,
With no, run it through us. Maybe look at it like this. It's kind of like, hey man, you've been making good horror. We're gonna trust you to make another one. And again, it's been a decent success. You know what I mean? Like it's like you said, it's been pretty divisive amongst horror fans. Some people really dug it. Others like us, not so much. And
yeah.
I think if we had a bit maybe stronger acting, it may have helped also.
I think that Madison was fine.
Yeah,
The rest of the cast was meh.
yeah,
You
but
know.
even she had some moments. I didn't want to
Yeah.
like. I don't always like putting in the clips for the YouTube channel where with the negativity. I try to at least show some good highlights. But
Right.
there's a scene where it's a slow pan of her screaming, and you could just see she's like the actress feels like either she was told to look like this, or at that point she's just like, what the fuck ever. Uh,
uh,
it's just there are little moments like that, and like for me, like the biggest notice was that the contortionist playing Gabriel slash Madison's body when Gabriel took
yeah.
over. 90% of that was a real person. There was hardly any like CG effects for the movements. So that
Well,
actor
that's
was
pretty impressive, to be honest
right,
with you.
absolutely, and so that contortionist was running backwards a lot because
Yeah.
since Gabriel's behind her head, they had to act backwards, and very little of that was apparently was special effects. So they just had a badass contortionist, and
Nice.
for people like me, just a little note when I was kind of going through like the cast because the Gabriel's voice sounded a little familiar. I looked it up, and for Final Fantasy fanboys like myself and somebody else listening, I'm sure, it's the voice of Noctis from Final Fantasy 15, Ray Chase. So like that's
Oh,
neat.
nice.
That's neat. Little Final Fantasy person working in this film, and that's about all the compliments I have for it.
Yeah. I'll say that as a mystery thriller ghost movie at the beginning of it,
right.
it was pretty decent. It fell apart for me when I started seeing what the reveal was going to be. And then when the reveal wasn't a twist at all, it was just exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. It was
at first I thought, well, maybe it's a dual personality. To me, this movie would have been better had Gabriel been a conjoined twin of hers that they did cut out, and it was a ghostly figure of Gabriel returning.
yeah. I think that actually because again that's what was felt like was set up, but
Yeah,
But now, like with what they went with, all that setup that we were behind and kind of feeling was just a mindless, um, what's the term? A bait and switch.
Yeah.
We're gonna make you think
Yeah.
like this, but it's actually this because I'm so creative and y'all didn't see
I'm
this
so
coming.
smart. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, because so many people I've from friends and just seen a few people talking about it on social media that they enjoyed it as always. And again, that's as always. Make up your own mind and go check it out, especially if you have HBO Max. It won't cost you anything to see.
That's right.
I don't.
Um,
I can't recommend it, but a lot of people will. So yeah, this
yeah.
is definitely one I encourage you to make up your own mind on.
Yeah. And definitely let us know what you think.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, we always are interested in feedback and telling us, if we're wrong or
Yeah.
just telling us, hey, you guys got this one right. We agree with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, what was your horror moment of this movie?
I actually got two because I got to give
Okay.
my wife one because she was dead. And I love watching horror movies with my wife because she is that loud screaming, reacting, overreacting to the scares, and she was dead this entire movie, just looking bored and frustrated. And for her, I'm giving the credit to her is when that lady fell through the roof and
Yeah.
revealed it was their home. My wife
Yeah.
was like holy shit, like that got a reaction out of her. So
That got a reaction from me too
yeah,
because while I was expecting Gabriel and Madison to be linked in some way,
yeah,
even up to that point, you knew there was, even before you'd found out through the hypnotherapist that, quote unquote imaginary friend, whatever.
yeah.
Um, I did not expect the kidnapped woman to be in the
Yeah,
attic.
when that reveal for me didn't hit as hard because by that point I had already put it together, and then all that
Yeah,
was okay. I was right. Fuck this movie, in a
yeah,
sense. But for me, and again because cinematography, as I know some people have like rolled their eyes when I've talked about this movie as the only part I remember really enjoying was the police station slaughter because it was
yeah,
well shot. It turned into a kung fu flick, sure, but
yeah.
I was so bored and annoyed with everything else going on, and I already figured out everything. I'm like, okay, well at least I'm gonna get some kung fu killings.
Yeah, for me, it was Derek's death. Um, just because at that point it still felt like a ghost story,
Right, right,
and even though it doesn't really show I mean, it shows the after effects of what happened,
right.
but basically he's just attacked and then we see him dead later. But to me, the build up to his death was pretty good.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not fantastic, but it was pretty good.
yeah, a
And
good.
that's about the best I can say about anything in this
Right.
movie.
Well,
The fog machines get a special nod for all
oh
the
yeah.
extra fog
Oh
in
my
this
god.
movie.
So much fog machines.
Yeah, I mean, it is San Francisco, but
I'm gonna take
I
your word
know
on
it's
that.
Seattle.
Oh,
Never
it's
mind.
Seattle. You're right. Yeah.
Yep,
Wait.
never mind.
Well,
They shouldn't have that much fog.
there should not be that much dry ice in anyone's basements or houses. So yeah,
All right. Well, I guess Sean, all that's left is rating this. Where do you rate it at?
man. When I wrote down my notes, I had 2 stars, and a lot of
Hmm.
that's for the cinematography. But after remembering all this and just kind of discussing, I'm down to 1.5.
Yeah, I gave it a 1.5 as well,
Yeah.
and it probably is just me being generous to be honest with everybody.
Yeah.
Um, and part of that's because I expect more from James Wan at this
I
point.
think so. And
I just do.
yeah, and I
Um,
don't think it's wrong to hold certain directors who have a good, you know, filmography to hold them to a higher standard. Now, of course, not
yep,
everything's going to hit, but for me, this hit way lower than even a miss of hit from a director of his caliber. I think
yep.
this hit way lower than it should have, even on a bad James Wan film.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I've loved every James Wan film, but even his bad ones have been
Better than
good
this.
ish. Yeah,
Yeah,
I can watch them and get enjoyment out of them. This
sure.
one, I just basically rolled my eyes through most of the movie. So
Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, that's where we're at on this one. Tell us where we're wrong. Tell us what we missed.
Tell us we're dumbheads. Let us know
Yeah.
if you loved the twist, didn't see it coming, enjoyed the entire film. I would love to hear that because I have my doubts. But
Yeah.
thank you. Like I said again, let us know if we're wrong. Let us know if you agree with us. Let's hit us up in the comments. And thanks for tuning in. We'll catch y'all next time.